Hey, what's up, Jasper Nation? We're back on Demio. How about that? I know the comments are about to flood in. It's always fun to see whoever's first. Um, we're doing a little test here. What is better? Do we do uh, Demio here? We have this kind of private setting, or do we do live stream across all of our social medias? The engagement is kind of interesting, and if you're a marketer, you might be interested to see that. We don't ever know how many people register for our live streams. We just hope that they have turned the little bell on and they show up. But here, you put in your email and we get to follow up and give you notifications. So, we saw that over like 1,200, 1,500 people or so have registered for today's training. And within 1 minute, we have almost 300. So, just kind of interesting to see which is better. I'm curious for you all. Maybe at the end, we can do a little poll. If the quality of this is better than the other, and if there's anything you like more about this than the live stream. We'll see. With that, you all probably already know Darby Rollins, but if not, let me introduce him. He's definitely the foremost expert in using Jasper. It might be because he was the very first person to ever use Jasper. This guy has taken it from being just, hey, Darby, what do you think about this thing? He was a copywriter, wrote, some books about copywriting, is one of the top copywriters on Upwork for Amazon listings. So, he really helped us train Jasper on several use cases. And now today, he's figured out how to do recipes, which is the focus of today's training. If you guys don't know about this really secret, cool feature of Jasper Recipes, imagine if you had your assistant that could follow your directions. You could be like, hey, Jasper, write me an email about the Austin, Texas real estate market and ask for to get a coffee. And then Jasper would write that email. It's a command. But then maybe you want to get a little bit more specific. What if there's a series of questions, like a standard operating procedure, that you would like Jasper to follow in an order? And it would always reference the stuff above to get smarter down below. This is where Darby has really taken stride. He's figured out just really custom recipes here. So if you have a specific way to write a blog article, you want to have it formed out this way. Or if you want to write video sales letters in a specific way, like here's where you do urgency and scarcity and social validation. There are so many other ways to do this too. You could make this for your own email outreach or how you want to create landing pages. So, hey, Darby, why don't you give us a little tee up into what they're going to learn today?
Absolutely, and great to see everybody here inside of the comment section. I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of a recipe that we've recently developed to help with just streamlining our process of generating ideas. Now, we all have a lot of ideas, I'm sure, that we do generate for our businesses all the time. And so this recipe is going to help do just that. I want to make sure, as I'm sharing my screen, can you see this recipe, Austin?
Yeah, it looks good.
Great. So this is just a really simple recipe we developed to help, again, with the idea generation process. Collaborated with a friend of ours named Adrian Brambilla on this. It's a really simple recipe, but it's a really powerful recipe. I'm going to give you a few examples of how to use it. Step one here, as always, is filling out the content brief. So what I'm going to do is just give Jasper on this left-hand side some general context about what I'm going to be talking about and filling out these variables right here, the number, the topic, and the niche. And so you'll see in this, and you guys should have access to this recipe as well for being a part of this training. So you can give it a spin yourself. But I'm just going to fill out this info here off to the side. And you can see I've got a little command that I've written here to reflect the numbers I'm updating inside the content brief. I'm going to say I want 10 ideas for, let's say, like what the topic is. I'm going to say YouTube video ideas. But let's say I'm in the dog training niche or dog breeding niche. Dog breeding. And so just a few small updates to the content brief here. And I'm going to go ahead and give Jasper a little Command-Shift-Enter to run this command. And now As you can see, I'm generating ideas from my YouTube idea
Wow.
at will. And so here's an interesting thing I want to point out with this recipe now is that Jasper's doing 10 because I told it 10. If I want to tell it 20, I can go over here and update 20. I go back here over to 10 with my cursor and just a simple Command J, hit that compose button. And now Jasper's referencing that again, he wants this to continue going towards that 20 mark. So right off the bat, if you're ever struggling with ideas for your YouTube channel, this could be for blog, this could be for marketing ideas, all of that. But here's a fun one for you guys that are into writing, let's say fiction with Jasper. So keep the number at 20. I'm gonna say fiction plot line ideas. And let's just pick let's just say horror stories over here. I'm gonna come back over to the command, go ahead and click that Command Shift Enter. And now we've got ideas for stories about objects that can cause death to anyone who possesses it, a college campus that's home to a dangerous creature that stalks students. And as you can see, especially for the rapid ideation, the rapid brainstorming, super simple recipe can be modified for so many different use cases, and it's already set up for me, so I don't have to think through this process again and again every time I come back to wanting to generate recipes. So
guys, how cool is that? Like, did your mind just break when you saw Jasper coming up with all of these new ideas? This is what I actually come to find when I will go and consult with professional marketers, professional copywriters, who, granted, they feel very strongly about writing their own copy. What they tend to find is that they use Jasper most for brainstorming, to break through writer's block, to get new ideas, fresh ideas. And especially within big marketing agencies, they want to come up with a lot of ideas for their client. Then they just use Jasper and do a list. Like, for example, you can say, hey, Jasper, what are 20 reasons someone might want to take vitamin D3 supplements? And then it comes up with all of the benefits, all of the reasons, and then even a layer 2 down, what the impact in their life would be, what the benefits, the not just the cause, but the other side for using like a brainstorming tool like Jasper. So it doesn't necessarily have to generate the exact copy you want to use, but what if you could use this as a brainstorming tool? And this is just to tease you all about what's to come. But yes, why don't you all put in the comments what industry you are thinking about using recipes for? And we're going to be sharing how to do this, but you're going to create them from scratch. We're also going to share a couple recipes that you can download into your account for free. And so there's a lot of cool stuff we'll talk about today. I see several people in here talking about real estate. So I was talking with you would know his name, so I'm not going to drop it, a famous real estate person. And he was like, I have this cold email script that I use, but it changes depending on the season. And it also changes depending on my last outreach. And if I'm talking about a different neighborhood that's hot in the city. So those are the 3 variables that he changes within his email copy to generate interest. And so we came up with this idea of, okay, well, what if we did variables? Hey, Jasper, say, start an email to one of my prospects saying, it's summertime in Austin, Texas, and the Travis County market is really hot. And so now you give Jasper these 3 variables, and it can write an email based on his successful scripts. Now, let me propose this to you. Do you have any successful scripts that you want to productize as a standard operating procedure and teach Jasper that? Are there any variables that you might want to include? These are some of the really interesting ways to use Jasper. So with that, I have like 155 new comments to read here. Darby, why don't you go ahead and continue with the training while I put together a list of comments here to address.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. While you do that, Austin, can I dive back in and share my screen, guys, just to give you, again, like kind of like now that we know what a recipe can do, got some ideas on how to insert variables into here. How do we really, like, if this is your first time coming in and this is your first exposure to recipes, like, where do we even start? What are we looking for? And it all starts inside of your Jasper account. If you can't see my screen, Austin, let me know. But
You're good. And let's go ahead and increase the screen size a few notches just so it's easier on everyone's eyes.
All right. Let's see if I can do. Is that better?
Yeah, that's great.
Great. So inside of your Jasper dashboard, we're talking about recipes. And so on the left-hand side, you see this recipes section, and this is going to be kind of like the home to all the recipes that you bring into your account. Now, the recipes that we're going to be covering today for demonstration, we're going to be linking those to you here inside of the chat, I believe. And so whenever you open those recipes up, they're actually going to end up inside of here so you can reference them again and again. But also, if you scroll on down on this page, you'll see a list of some of the more featured recipes, like cold email recipe, for example, idea factory, blog posts. These recipes have been downloaded thousands of times before by Jasper users all around the world. And I've seen some comments inside that were asking about Jasper for fiction. Hero's Journey is a good example of one that could be used for fiction and storytelling, character development. Then we've got the perfect nonfiction book for those of you writing problem-solving books. And a lot of you guys are writing blogs too, Facebook ads. So this is a really good place to start when it comes to recipes. And so that's where you find these recipes. And as you kind of go about building your own, you may end up building up maybe your own like spreadsheets for hosting your own set of recipes that you build as they're kind of customized for your account. You'll also find them here as you begin to run and use them. So for example, now I'm going to open up, let's just see which recipe we were just using to discuss a little bit about like the formatting of some of these recipes. So I'll just pull this one up, for example, this nonfiction recipe. When you open up a recipe, this is right before what we call running a recipe. You'll see the running, create a new doc from the recipe. Whenever you click run the recipe, this is actually going to open up the recipe inside of whatever project you are working in directly inside of Jasper. And so going back to your main screen, the bottom left-hand side, you'll see all these different projects. So whenever you're opening up recipes and you want to keep them organized, make sure that you're in the right project for that recipe. Just a quick tip to help you stay a little more organized there. And then in general, as you're making these recipes, you have a few key elements here that you can add in for one, yourself, for two, other people that you're sharing this recipe with, whether it's teammates or colleagues that you want to teach them on how to use your own recipe. You can upload a video to YouTube and include an explainer video right here. You have a little bit of room for adding in a description to kind of give a high level overview. And then you have the recipe content. And so that's what the rest of this page is essentially going to be, is this is what's going to be inside of the recipe. And there's a few helpful links on this page too, where you can view your recipes and you can go and check out a little bit more detail on recipes. And the two key things that I want to highlight here when we're going to be opening up and running this recipe is what to look for, like when you're navigating inside of a recipe that you might make, however you want to format and structure it so that it's easier for you to follow. These three dots, these blinders right here, the asterisks, are going to be what Jasper is not going to be able to look above that. It's not, and it's kind of, when I'm writing out recipes, I like to use them to help break down each specific section, because while Jasper might reference this area, it won't reference the area above it, but it will, as long as this on the left-hand side is toggled on, it'll continue to reference my content description. And so as you get more comfortable with boss mode and using recipes, I highly encourage you to just keep practicing and keep improving your content briefs, because that's going to be one of the biggest needle movers in terms of quality in the outputs that you have. And so without going into too much detail on like actually filling out the description, the brief for this specific recipe, I just want to highlight the key factors that Jasper is going to reference. Let's say if you're looking for a list of book titles, right? You're an author and you need to brainstorm ideas for books. This command is going to reference your title, your content brief, your tone of voice, and any specific keywords that you give Jasper here on the left. And so, excuse me. And so with any recipe, I always start with filling out this left-hand side first, because that is going to help give much more context to Jasper to improve the quality of your outputs as well. And you'll notice these commands are a little more open-ended, right? It's write a list of book titles based on concept, topic, idea. And so these are all areas that you see a command and you want to modify it slightly, maybe towards the exact topic. If we were writing a book on how to like write product descriptions on Etsy, you might just say, based on the concept of writing product descriptions on Etsy, or as we'll discuss the variables here a little bit later on, you'll be able to literally reference different key elements inside of Jasper.
And with that said, the reason why we named it boss mode is so that it puts you in a position of being the boss and Jasper is your assistant. And always remember that the better directions you give your assistant, the better job they'll do. And so that left-hand column where you can give context to Jasper about what you want it to write about, if you do a good job there, it'll do a better job in the document.
Cool. So with that in mind, I have a few more examples of how, these are examples with recipes that you guys will have access to linked here, so you can use them for yourself. The first one being a website. Let me make sure I've got the right one pulled up. All right, cool. First one being a website FAQ recipe, because if we're in business, we've got questions about our business, you got to answer those questions. Jasper's a great assistant for helping you develop those questions and also providing answers. And so this recipe, pretty simple recipe. And again, as most of my recipes that you guys will find start with this kind of theme at the top of it. The content brief, right? What are the 6 questions that you want to give Jasper for the most context that'll help get you the best outputs, from Jasper in writing out your content? And so basically what I want to do anytime.
Hey, Darby, are you ready to give away this recipe in the comments?
Totally. Yeah. If you want to share that, I think you have the link, right, Austin?
Yeah. So which one are we going in right now?
This is the website FAQ recipe.
Okay, cool. All right, sharing now. So on your screen, you should see a little pop-up that allows you to download it into your account.
Cool.
Sweet.
All right. So I've kind of got the ball rolling a little bit on this recipe with like, what is this recipe specifically? Say like I want to like fill out like the FAQ section on my site, or I'm just like saying like, what would people even be asking about my business in the first place? Let's say I am an e-commerce marketing agency that specializes in helping brands sell more products on Amazon. I might want to give a little bit more context, like who is this for? Who is it not for? We'll say like we serve, e-commerce brands specific to the supplements niche. Right, just giving Jasper a little bit more of an idea of where we're heading with this. But let's just say like we just want to give it some content brief, some description. If you have landing page copy, I've added this because I use this recipe often, is if you have copy already written from, let's say like a website that you want to add in, maybe it's an about us or maybe it's anything else. Like inside of boss mode, Jasper can actually reference about 3,000 characters above it. And so that's where any more context that you might have is going to go here in that recipe. So the Jasper is going to understand even more about what we're talking about. But notice, and I might need to run this command a few different times, just FYI, sometimes it works on the first one, sometimes it takes a couple to go, but I've set this up to kind of be 2 commands in one. Because if all I did was write a list of 10 FAQs, it's going to write those FAQs out directly. But because I've added list out each 1 through 10 and after provide an answer in order, like I'm commanding Jasper to do it in this very specific structure. And so I just did Command Shift Enter. And so you can see question 1, what services do you offer? And so I didn't tell it anything about keyword research optimization, but Jasper's smart. It knows a lot about marketing. It knows a lot about Amazon. And so really my role right now, as I'm building out this part of my website, or what I'm doing is I'm kind of like that editor now. And I'm looking at them like, does this make sense? Is this going in the right direction? How much do we charge? Do I want to add more information on that? Or is that really the case? What is your success rate, right? Like, what are all the questions that someone might have to answer about your product, your offer, your service? And ask Jasper to help you, with that out. Do you have case studies? Do you have qualifications, right? If at anything, it's helping me get the ball rolling so that I could start to expand and elaborate a little bit more on this process. If I don't have a 30-day cancellation notice, or maybe I do, that might be the case. And if I know that Jasper's on a good roll, again, you can come back up here. It stopped at 10 because I told it 10. I went back up, top 20 FAQs, and it didn't do that one. So if it doesn't necessarily reference at that time, because Jasper thinks and like recognizes patterns and how it builds and gets smarter as you write, I'm just going to start with 11 dot and then click Command J. And so this gets it back on that kind of roll and keeps it going towards, essentially just answering all these questions that I'm going to want to have to include on my website. And all good questions seem all very relevant with, kind of where we're at. And so again, the more context that you're bringing into this recipe specifically, Jasper is going to be able to develop and improve on those commands with a lot more accuracy because you're bringing that in. So
cool.
I
love it. Yeah. So we'll go into like a few of these different recipes. Darby is really just opening Pandora's box for you right now to show you all the different ways to use Jasper. So for example, FAQs might take a long time to write, and Jasper can quickly write them for you. You might have to update them based on your own policies, like is your refund policy 30 days or 7 days, etc. And if you included that in the brief, then it should know that information and reference it. There's been a few questions about can Jasper cite sources or any links? And I think this question stems from a lack of understanding how Jasper works. So yes, it's read the internet and it knows pretty much about everything. But when it writes, it's not citing or using information from any one source. Rather, it's combining all of its knowledge to create new content. And so we've even included a plagiarism checker within Jasper. We've partnered with our friends over at Copyscape. And in the top corner, you can click on the plagiarism tool. It runs it, and just for a couple cents, we've already gotten you a deal hooked up. Then you can go and look at and just confirm that there's no plagiarism in there. 99% of the time there's not, but you might want to check it just to be sure. All right. Also, in the top corner, there's a little question mark for you to be able to see all of the commands, a directory of available commands. But the truth is, you can basically say whatever you want to Jasper. You can say, hey, Jasper, come up with a new name for my baby. And it will literally like generate a whole bunch of new names. So just know, like, it's actual artificial intelligence. You can speak to it, and it will understand what you're asking.
Real quick, I also saw some inquiry about the idea generating recipe as well. Austin, I don't know if you want to link that now or at some point while we're going through. I do have another recipe that I'd like to dive in as well and give you guys another example that we have to share here as well. So y'all
now
go
on your screen, there's a link to the idea generation recipe. If you click in the bottom left-hand corner, then click the run button, it'll save it into your account.
Perfect. Cool. So I've got another recipe that I want to demonstrate for you guys with a little bit more variables in it now. Kind of, we've talked a little bit about variables, and really, like, this is something that we've been exploring a lot deeper over the past like month or two, specifically just with like, where can we really push these variables? And we're learning new stuff about them every single day, every single week. So as you guys discover more uses with these commands too, I've got an awesome community and love to kind of like share information, lift each other up. So as you guys are like discovering new commands, please go ahead and share them inside the Facebook group, show people what you're finding to do with really cool stuff with Jasper. And let me jump into this next one here. Now, this next one, I think you guys are going to find.
And by the way, with commands, I just want you to think how Darby's thinking is you can create these for the community. So if like you've concocted one that's like really good and you vetted it, you can actually publish and have other people in the community use yours. And you can even include a video and things like that. So sharing is caring, y'all.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump back in here, guys. So this is the elevator pitch to landing page recipe. Made this one about a month or so ago. And to be honest with you guys, I didn't even think about turning this into like a full-blown recipe the way that you see it here. I was trying to create this recipe to literally just be an XYZ statement. We do X for Y so they can Z, right? Like a very common framework formula for like your elevator pitch, right? What do you do? How do you explain what you do in a very short amount of time? And this is kind of like when we started experimenting with variables a lot more as well. So what you guys will find whenever you download this into your account, you'll see that this is the copy and paste, get this into the content brief. And so that's really my first step here with the way that this one's set up. I paste that in with all of this, meant like on purpose, I added it in here for that extra context. We want to start filling that out with basically like what your product, your service, and otherwise. And so I've actually already done this in the example. And so I'm just going to, for the sake of time, show you what the example that we used in building this recipe out we have a few variables here, right? P is the problem, not having a clothes fit right, and this is going to be for like busy parents, right? And let's see what the insert your product or service, portrait photography, ideal customer or client, busy parents, the benefit they receive, getting high quality artistic photos to display in your home, and how do you offer this solution? In-person photo shoot, right? And so for whatever your product, your service offer is, what's the problem you're solving? What's your product? Who's your ideal customer client? What are the benefits they experience and how do you deliver it? But just answering a few simple questions. This actually has a few examples here that we're going to start with. And so that was an example output, but I'm going to bring that down and then let's like evaluate the structure of this setup. Pitch for X that helps Y do Z. Make sure to address P that positions X for the solution with O as the delivery mechanism, right? We only have 200 characters inside of a command to run. And there's no way we would have been able to tell Jasper this inside of one command if we had to write out portrait photography, busy parents. So what we're really doing is compressing the command by utilizing the content brief. And then let's see how this works. Can Jasper write us a compelling elevator pitch that touches on each thing right here? Well, let's see. Looking for high quality artistic portraits to showcase in your home, look no further than X, Y, and Z. So the reason to call it out here while it's saying is there's X, Y, and Z, it's pulling that still from here, right? And so we could easily replace this X, Y, Z with custom photography, right? Right, we specialize in let's do custom family photography. I'm going to take that because I realize that I want Jasper to continue referencing that I'm going to say brand, because right now I'm just trying to tell Jasper what I'm going to be talking about, and custom family photography. I could add that brand in here as well, but here we go. That's a pretty solid elevator pitch if I am looking at it. I mean, any comments on your end, Austin? We could easily
yeah, I mean, that's pretty sweet. And the comments are freaking out. I also just added your third free gift from Darby today is the elevator pitch landing page. This is more of an advanced recipe, as you can see. He's using all the bells and whistles from, the content description on the left-hand side, variables, commands with variables inside of them. It's pretty cool. And so this is literally cutting edge stuff on the fringe of marketing meets AI. And so even if it's not exactly what you want to do, how fast did you get through writer's block and get 80% of the way there? And now you can finesse it the way you want to. If you are someone who sells information, a coach, consultant, even agency, author, speaker, etc., then you could package a recipe based on your own brand and give that away for free to your audience. And so I know recently, Darby, didn't you do a recipe off of this book?
Yes, we have that one as well. That's a beast of a recipe.
The beast of a recipe. But for example, like he turned a book into an actionable recipe to help the audience. You know, if like the ask method with Ryan Levesque, you know, there's a specific way he goes about, you know, grabbing attention, etc. And then you can now put that into a Jasper recipe and help your audience. So like there's all of these ways that you can think about, you know, for your own business, packaging that into a recipe. And if you didn't want to do it, obviously Darby, his service is doing that for you.
Yeah. And something I want to kind of maybe to piggyback on with that in mind is like what we're seeing now, like inside of the community, especially with like consultants and coaches that have like these really high level tested and tried frameworks, is creating a recipe, if not to like go and like sell it as a service for like new business, but to like onboard clients to your own like current offerings. If you are asking the same clients the same series of questions to get to a result where you can now come in and be most effective, like educating your clients and walking through recipes with them can take something that could take like a 3-hour deep dive offer call into like a 30-minute, let's run through this recipe real quick. Right. And so you can get into like taking and, developing action. But I do want to jump back into that recipe again, Austin, because that was that was the tip of the iceberg. And
there's been a few people as well asking for a VSL recipe, and I can just tell you, good news is on the way. Darby and I are working on something pretty sick. So with the man that invented the VSL. So with that said, go ahead, Darby. The floor is yours.
Cool. So I did see someone mention, why did it say XYZ instead of brand name? I just did update the content brief once I saw that. This is a recipe for brand equals customer family photography. If you just removed brand and just had that customer family photography, it probably would have referenced that as well. But like, how powerful can an elevator pitch really be? Like, what can we do with this simple paragraph that gives someone the 1-minute overview of our business? Well, what you do is you scroll down this recipe a little bit and you copy and paste the winning XYZ statement right here. So now I've got the elevator pitch and I've got a series of these commands written out already. And I see this one is actually a duplicate command. So I'm going to delete that one, not a big deal. And write a compelling offer for O. So let's go ahead and see what this kind of like starts to develop for. Like, I want to create an offer now around our in-person photo shoots. And so commanding Jasper, write me a compelling offer. We're excited to offer free in-person photo shoots to new customers. Guarantee you'll be thrilled with the results. You know, don't wait, book your session today. Cool. Sounds pretty cool. Who can say no to a free photo shoot, especially if you're a busy parent who wants these high quality photos of their children, right? So I just ran that command and now it's pulling right from the Y over here. And we could update these commands too, like as we find like new commands that work inside of here to be even more and more detailed. But you can see, just because we've already given Jasper the context, what is the product? Explain it in detail. This is what we do. You know, why do people need it? What is why desire? Most people need photos because they, you know, have a physical representations of the loved one they can hang on the wall or put in albums. I think that's true. You know, they may want to also capture this, right? And so like, here's like, again, back into that brainstorming, like why does somebody need this product? Why do they desire it? You know, and so like you can keep running these commands again and again until you find that one that really captures what you're looking for here. And I think we're on a pretty good roll, paragraph for paragraph. Like, how do they get it? Delivery method, in-person photo shoots. It's a perfect way. And, you know, Jasper putting a cap on everything with a little call to action. Go ahead and book your session today. But now we're getting into the benefits of things, right? So I'm like, cool. Like, I know my product. I know who I'm serving. I know what I have to offer and the problems they solve. Now I need to find a list of benefits. Boom. Capture beautiful, timeless portraits of your loved one. Get high quality photos that will last a lifetime, right? Relax and enjoy the experience, right? Perfect for busy parents who want to capture their children's personalities. Say, oh, I didn't want to finish up there. I'm going to say now, go back up to this command, write a list of odd number 17 benefits. Here, go back to the end of this last line. And I'm betting that Jasper recognizes we want to talk about a lot more and keep giving me those benefits, right? Lifts me out all those benefits. Love the benefits. That's what we're selling here at family custom family photography, right? But, oh, I realize now I'm a successful photographer. I've got too much business that I can handle in person. People are asking me, how do I do you have like a course? Or like, is there a way that I could learn how to do this for myself too? Well, say no more, because Jasper's going to help us develop an outline for an online course, right? Or maybe like a module of like how to actually work with us specifically, right? You can modify this entire recipe to fit exactly what you're offering, and just a few tweaks here and there. You could build out modules for a course. You could build out a step-by-step process for people working with you. And ultimately, right, just solving all the problems, identifying your customer. Again, not everyone has time or everything they need. They don't want to have the money to hire a professional photographer. They're expensive, right? You come in here as the offer owner and, use these problems or these objections and then spin them around and, turn them into, actually good reasons for people to want to work with you. And Jasper, okay, I got to highlight this now. If any of you guys just saw that, Jasper, I think it's sentient, if that's the word that we're using these days. It's literally commanding itself because it recognizes what we're doing here. And it literally just prompted itself to write another elevator pitch, right? And you'll find that as you give Jasper these commands and it's learning as what we're talking about, it's going to keep going on that. And so again, this is such a cool recipe, guys. I'm really excited to see what you guys create with it, because this is similar to that FAQ section recipe that we had, right? Write a solution for each of the problems above, starting with problem 1 and make one unique and direct. So Jasper, people don't have enough time to do everything they need to do. This, right, was a problem I think that we referenced up here somewhere. Remember, we referenced a bunch of problems earlier.
Brilliant. And in the syntax that you're doing this here, you're putting a little arrow to represent a command.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
That way, as you're reading the page, like that little command arrow to the right is showing that you're speaking to Jasper with a direction. And then if you want to keep it, you'll do Command Shift Enter. If you wanted to just replace that sentence, just do Command Enter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I usually use Command Shift Enter to keep it, because I'll find that I'll forget what the exact command was. I don't necessarily want to rerun it, but if you find that you got a perfect command and you don't want to use it again, it might be beneficial to just delete it after you run it and you know where it's going, because then Jasper won't recognize that you're asking it just a series of commands, and you can direct it a little bit further down the page. But, again, as you guys can see, all of these commands down here, literally everything that you guys would need to basically build out an offer scarcity, brainstorm scarcity ideas, offering guarantees, deliverables, problem, solution, whatever you want to do. You're only you're just a few variables away from the perfect recipe. I think that's an awesome recipe. And so something I just saw the question, Gina, it's a great question. When you're running through recipes and you find that maybe a command is giving you weird outputs, or it's just not working, write a list of X telling me about Y, and it's talking about hummingbirds in Alaska, right? Okay, clearly I need to give it some more structure. I need to update the content brief, or maybe it's just not giving you the types of continuation of your commands. If instead of doing Command Enter or Command Shift Enter, and you do just Command J, that can actually help lead Jasper down a little bit different path, sometimes a better path for what you're wanting to. So don't be scared to use Command J on a command, because the results might actually surprise you.
And when you're creating your own recipe, let's say that there's like an output that you think is really good. Let's say it's like one of your own examples. Maybe you want to give it 3 examples of like your best performing ad copy. You put that at the top of the page, and then you do a command, and it says, create a new ad, and then you have all your variables in the left-hand side, and then it writes it, reading those first. So Jasper, before writing, always reads above itself. And so it can reference the style, the formula, like the overall, like if you start with Dear John, thanks James, then the next time it writes an email, if it read that above, it'll probably do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So this is all based on probabilities. Sometimes Jasper goes in different directions, but if you give it an example, really good context on that left-hand side, variables, and then you just, run it a few times and see, pick and choose, cherry pick on how you want, you really like this sentence, you really like that sentence, tie them all together for your final output. Yeah. And I promise you, this is like 10 times faster workflow than just trying to stare at a blank page and do it yourself.
Yeah. Well, why don't we show that as an example? I mean, like I saw a few people, like obviously like real estate's a really popular like niche we're working in. What does every market need, or every business need? It needs email, right? If you're putting content out there, if you want people on your list to go and read content that you're putting out there, you need to write emails that send people to wherever you want them to go ultimately. And so let's take that idea, right? We've got an idea for let's just say you already know how you want to write emails, and you want to pass it on to like your marketing director or a new intern that's working for your company to help you with writing your emails for all of your marketing. How do we start, right? Like, okay, I have an idea for a recipe. What I'm going to do now, since we got about 10 minutes or less, I'm going to show you guys the process that I use right now to go about building a recipe from scratch. And so I'm going to show you how to go through this process, kind of start to finish with a smaller recipe. Same thing applies if it's a recipe that's 5,000 characters long or otherwise. So taking that recipe idea in mind, I'm just going to jump back in. Let's do over here. Jump back in over here, and I'm going to open up my Jasper account. I'm going to go over to recipes. And actually, what I'm going to do before I even do that is I'm going to open up a new Jasper document. And so I always start my new recipes inside of Jasper document pretty much. Actually, this is how I start all my recipes. You guys, I know, Austin, you have this. This is my recipe template for all of the stuff we do inside of our cookbook. The reason I've set it up like this, and the reason you might find it valuable, is because a lot of people use these recipes for themselves. It gives you the ability to give your recipe a name, title, what project it's for. If you need to give credit to anyone for the recipe, and any important links for people to go and watch more information on it. And then I just have it templatized to keep these content briefs in here, because it's so important for every time you guys are running a new recipe. You don't have to follow this template exactly. It's just available for y'all if you'd like to have a place to start from. But let's say here we're saying, cool, I've got this recipe. I'm going to say, new email writing recipe, like for driving clicks to blog posts. And then I'll tidy all of this up, a little bit later once I get past the first version of this recipe.
Darby, could you text me that recipe? I'll share it with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I hadn't given it to you. Yeah, let me pull that up real quick. There you go. Make sure you guys get this recipe while you have it on here. I guess I'll just do a private chat for you real quick, Austin. Should be through this link. All right, cool. So got recipe. Where are we at here? Inside of the recipe, Jasper doc. Cool. So here we are. Say like, cool, I've got a process for writing emails, and it's going to go from like finding like a blog or something along those lines. Now, Austin, do we want to I don't know if we want to maybe use like a Jasper blog, or if you have maybe a marketing blog or something that we could send like clicks to like directly. Any ideas like that, just for like examples case?
Is this like an email to a blog post? Or
Yeah, like
what do you think?
an email to a blog post. So, I mean, just
Hey, how about we go with like an email to a friend or something like that? How does that sound? Like to a prospect. If you're a salesperson, you're trying to generate interest. Let's go with the real estate example, since we saw a few people in here about real estate. Let's say the context is that it's summer season, people are moving, and would you like to meet up for coffee to talk about the inventory? All right, y'all, I'm getting you Darby's recipe about a recipe here in a second.
So just kind of like starting at this again, like blank slate, real estate, people are moving, email out to a prospect. And so it all starts with that content brief, right? And so if I'm starting here and I know that it's the same type of email, maybe for anything, it's like, I'm going to answer just basically these questions for what I want to put in the content brief, right? Like what? It's like summer, let me say like, what equals moving this summer? Why? Let's say people are moving because it's hot outside here in Texas. Who, on my prospect list for real estate. And next 2 or 3 months. And then how, it was like a call to action for real estate. It's like get like help you submit an offer or something like that. Submit an offer fast. And so just some like what, where, who, when, how, why, it's a busy market, fast paced market. Cool. So I'm writing a letter to a prospect. Here, I'm going to just type that out here. This is an email being written to a real estate prospect. Format, hey, name. A lot of times with like cold email or just in general, right? The marketing frameworks that Jasper knows, like AIDA or PAS, problem, agitate, solution, attention, interest, desire, action, are really like, they work really well for just emailing out because you get people's attention, you get their interest and desire, and then there's a call to action, right? And whatever that call to action is that you'd want, hey, name, AIDA framework, sign off, right? And so super simple setup right here, but a very common setup, and something that if I needed to go and do this every single time, you just saw it takes a few minutes to do that. And so if we have this set up as a recipe already and have a command that works once, we're saving ourselves endless amounts of time potentially if we can go ahead and rerun this by just systematizing, creating an SOP around it. I'm going to say write an email to, let me say like, let's do this. Prospect equals John Doe. Right? An email to say prospect about what? Because why? Include a CTA. Actually, I'm going to do this in AIDA framework to prospect because why? Include a CTA to respond fast because why? Never ran this before, so let's see what happens. Command Shift Enter. And hello, John Doe. I'm writing this because I know you're looking for a new home in the next few months. The market's moving quickly. Wanted to help you submit an offer fast. Our team can help you get through the process quick and smooth. Contact us today to get started.
Wow, pretty good.
Wow. And so like because of this, less AIDA framework here, but still pretty on point. You know, if you are Jane and you're moving this like winter, it's cold outside here in Alaska, you know, just a few little tweaks of this variable. Fast-paced market here in Alaska. I want to make sure you had all the information before. Confident, please let me know.
There you go.
Here you go. And wow, like variables are set up. When you're doing this for your own business, like I think the most important thing here is like thinking of how can you make your own variables and structure commands in such a way that like you spend a few minutes doing this right one time and you'll save yourself hours and hours doing this again down.
So if you're a sales team leader, whether it's for your real estate brokerage, your insurance firm, or for your B2B SaaS sales team, and you want to create, like, based off of winning scripts, a really quick way to distribute fresh emails to all of your people, give all of your salespeople Jasper recipes based on your winning scripts, and then it can just print, you know, fresh, new emails in the tone of voice you've trained it on with the variables personalized for the client. Pretty wild.
So because we just made that recipe now, right? Like now that we've made the recipe and ran it, the next question is like, okay, how do we do this again and again and again and again and again? And how do we give it this recipe to you guys to be able to use for yourself, right? I saw a few people already asking to get this recipe. Well, I'll show you how we take this format for a recipe now, break it down, turn it into an actual recipe format, and get it to where you can start training people to go through this process yourself. If I can find my screen, that would be great. Cool. So now that I've got the framework for this recipe out, I might want to just add something like write a list of email subject lines for this email, right? Add that in because I know that's going to be a really, we're not talking about that. Moving this winter. Let's see, like just make sure it's going to work. Moving this winter, Alaska's fast-paced market. And so write emails, right? That's going to be a command you're going to use anyway. So why not just include it with what we're at here? And so moving fast-paced market. And so I usually, once I know that I have like a content brief example, I'm going to go here and just go content brief example there. And then you might just take these and change it to like prospect's name, what's going on, but it's pretty self-explanatory because we literally just answered the questions here above. And so I'm going to go ahead and take this here from the bottom. I'm going to copy and paste it right up here. And then I'm going to jump back over to the recipe section and I'll copy it. And I'm going to go over to my recipe, click new recipe, and paste it right here. So now, as you can see, there's a lot of spaces. And this is kind of like just basic formatting 101 inside of Jasper. If you have it pasted directly from Jasper, as of right now anyways, if you don't like modify the format inside of the recipe here, it'll end up just taking up more space. And it's just easier on the eyes when I find that I replace stuff. This is the output on the recipe. I'm just going to say like after the output is set, run the command below just for a little user example. Write a list of catchy emails, write an email in the framework above. So I'm actually going to keep this format right here.
And speaking of formatting, Darby, why don't you go ahead and explain the stars that you've put across the screen?
Yeah, so as we talked about earlier, y'all, the three asterisks is the blinders in Jasper, but I find once you start to kind of like run through these recipes and those three asterisks might be neat, like you might gloss over them. In my experience, like just with longer recipes, this is like kind of like a personal preference thing to just help me like break up the page in recipes, in part because we can't like format necessarily like the recipes here. If this was like H1, H2, and 3, and it downloaded into your Jasper account like that, it'd probably be a little bit easier in terms of like just hierarchy of the page. So this doesn't mean anything special other than like I like the way it looks and it helps me navigate my recipes myself. I do also
So the
include some
blinders
other
stop
things.
Jasper from reading before it writes. Like if it hits a blinder, then it's going to stop reading above. And this is like if you find Jasper repeating itself, or if you're trying to change subjects, then you would put a blinder there, and that's what he's done across this page. So that's why you would use it.
Yeah, and I don't want Jasper to see all of this, right? And so it just keeps it very compartmentalized for what I want it to do. And if I want to include any additional training here, driving clicks, blog post, link, email to a real estate prospect looking to move, right? Like description, this is an email recipe to reach out to prospects looking to move in the near future. And I can come back in here and modify this a little bit more. Lengthy name, but it's very descriptive. And so I got the title, I've got the description, I've got my commands set up here. I've closed a lot of the space between it. I did leave one additional space right here, just because whenever you open it up, that will, it'll reference it. If I put blinders right here, and Jasper is not going to know to follow that exact framework. So I'm leaving that open. And then whenever I'm ready, after I do this round of the recipe, I'll go in and do like a YouTube video specific for running this command, and I'll add that in here to the YouTube explainer. If you want to take this recipe, make it your own, format it yourself, make your own explainer video for yourself and your team, you're more than welcome to do that too. Once I click save, I'm going to come back up and go ahead and click share. Right now it's private, so only members of this account can use it. If I wanted to make it public, I can do it and make it public. I can also make it published and give it to the Jasper community. So if I do that, it's published right now. I'm going to go ahead and click copy. I want to make sure that it does save. But now, and I'll share this with you in just a second, Austin. Now I've done the work, got the recipe set up, locked and loaded, and now we're ready to jump back in. This is now what I see. I've got my project. Basically, I can sit at my computer and say, wow, everything is pretty much already done for me. Someone's already set the table. And I just need to basically go in here, copy this content brief in, add a tone of voice if I want to, or I say, all right, it's time to start emailing some prospects, right?
And tone of voice is one of the biggest variables you can do to change the way Jasper's writing. So if you wanted to do funny, sad, angry, or even an impersonation like Jerry Seinfeld, it knows that, and it can mimic that tone of voice. Jasper is even good at like doing rhyming and rapping, and like if you wanted to do that, like just put it in the tone of voice. So have fun with it. Like this, I hope that this training showed you the possibilities to get the most out of your Boss Mode account. So go ahead and start creating your own recipes. If you feel like you really need like a more complex, way to go about recipes, or you need just assistance, Darby has taken on, created a business around creating recipes for authors, creating recipes for coaches, etc., or even your large companies. So I'm going to share his AI author cookbook. This is to get access to like challenges that he throws about creating recipes, and it's not just recipes. I think you do a lot more, but do you want to share more details about how this works?
Yeah, we inside of the cookbook is essentially our container for more advanced Jasper training across the board. And we run regular monthly, quarterly challenges, boot camps for people. Like this past week, we just wrapped up the summer 7-day book challenge. We had a handful of people crush it. I think one guy messaged me the other day, had like 44,000 words inside of the challenge. A lot of people very close to publishing their books there. And so inside of that group, that community, we're all here supporting each other and taking Jasper for books, blogs, social posts, essentially everything you need to do to use Jasper to save time, make more money. And as we develop these recipes inside that group, that community is the first place to see them, to use them, to test them. At some point, they all end up surfacing to the top as it is. But, with what we're doing, my partner Zachariah and I at the AI Author, working with larger companies, enterprise level trainings to develop these like more robust recipes, all of the knowledge that we're learning. This is our knowledge base for that, like our library, if you will, for resources related to Jasper and becoming just better at Jasper all across the board. So.
Yeah, and here at Jasper, we'll continue making free training that is from our studio and all of that. It's often going to be 101, 201. What Jasper's doing here, as you saw today, is pretty advanced, and it's unlocking a lot of potential. We're also using this group to help us surface like new ideas, and so as you go through Darby and he helps coach you and all that, we will get make the product better off of your all's feedback. So. This is a great community. Thank you all for showing up live. If you're watching the recording, look down in the comments to get access to all this stuff. And with that, we'll hop off here. And if you want to continue the conversation with this video, I'll post it in the Facebook group, and we'll just hammer out Q&A in the comments there.
All right.
Thank you all. Have a great day.